G'day BookTube, you're here with Nick the Renaissance Bookman. One of the coolest things that can happen to a reader is when you discover a little known book, one that nobody else is talking about. You read it, you love it. You recommend it to other people and they love it. And then you discover 6 months later that an epic director like Ridley Scott is turning that little known book into a movie. And that is exactly what happened with The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. In 2025, I made 3 different videos about this book. The first was before I even read a single page. It's where I talked about what I thought was to come, why I was excited for this book, why I picked it up, and what were the themes that I was really excited to explore. The second video was literally like 1 minute after I finished the last page of the book. It was raw, it was less refined, but it captures my authentic reaction to the story. And the third video where I talked about this book was my end of year wrap up, where I tier ranked, racked and stacked every single book that I read throughout the year. And you will see based on where I ranked that book that I thoroughly enjoyed The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. It was a book that stood out to me last year. And so given that the movie is coming out in a little over a month, I thought, why not combine these 3 videos that I've made and actually put together a bit of a pre and a post, see what I was excited for, where it met the mark, where it maybe disappointed me, but where I was also pleasantly surprised. Based on how much I liked this book, I'm super keen to watch what Ridley Scott has got in store for us. I will admit, having watched the trailers, it is evident that the director has applied a fair bit of poetic license, like a fair bit. It's either that or I completely whiffed on the chapter where we have the last charge of the light horse and a horde of angry Mongols leap onto the plain. It does look exciting, and it's probably like 10% more charged up than what the book actually was, but hey, I'm here for the story. It's actually the interiority of the main protagonist that I'm super keen to explore. Stress is a theme that we talk about quite a bit in here, and how it can take over your mind and your thoughts and everything that you're doing. I'm really keen to explore how Ridley Scott is going to do this in the movie. So if you're wondering if you should read the book before you go and watch the movie, well, the answer is yes. Like, it's always yes. I'm not sure I can name a movie that was better than the book, and I don't think that's going to be the case here as well. But I'm still super keen to see what Ridley Scott has in store. If you want to figure out why you should read this, then you need to stick around. Watch the video and I'll tell you exactly why. Until next time, ciao. The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. This book was first published back in 2012, but I've only discovered it this year. It's a post-apocalyptic fictional story where we follow one guy and his dog as they are trying to survive in America after 99% of the world's population has died in a supervirus. Main protagonist's name is Hig and his dog Jasper. They live in a hangar on an airstrip just to the north of Denver, Colorado, where other post-apocalyptic novels require the protagonist to get around with a shopping cart. Not in this one. Living on an airstrip means that he gets to go exploring every single day, looking for food, scouting out, trying to find fellow survivors in a 1956 Cessna 182. And that's exciting. So Hig's out on his standard sort of routine one day when he hears a transmission, an indication that there could be others like him that are alive, that have access to airplanes. And that sparks something within him, an element of hopefulness that there are others that are like him, that he could be doing life with, that he could be in community with. It sparks the idea that perhaps the grass is greener on the other side. And so what follows is a story of adventure, a story of loneliness, but a story of love, and importantly to me, a story of hope. Now, I first heard about this book earlier this year when I attended the Newcastle Writers Festival, and one of the authors name dropped this book. He got asked that very standard sort of typical question of, hey, what have you read lately? What have you been enjoying? And he name dropped this book, The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. I read half a sentence on the very first review, and I knew that I would be buying this book. That sentence actually made it to the front cover. 5 words, quote, "The road, but with hope." Now, I don't know if you've read Cormac McCarthy's The Road, but the one thing that that book is without is hope. Now, you could argue that there is a theme of hope as illustrated in the constant reference to carrying the fire between the father and the son in that one. But it's not a hope of a better future. We get no indication that there's a better future for these guys. Perhaps we want that and we're trying to project that onto the page. I know being default optimistic, I was trying to project that into every single scene. And perhaps you could argue that the final scene, you finally get to do that. But I don't think that's what Cormac McCarthy's going for. So that's a really challenging book to read. I enjoyed it, but it was challenging. The ideas around suicide and euthanasia, they're not pleasant conversations. Oftentimes, being that optimist, I enjoy just being the ostrich with my head in the sand and just being completely ignorant to these sorts of themes. But it's important to explore. And McCarthy forces you to explore them. I distinctly remember finishing the book, closing it, and I audibly said, "Oh, that sucked." It doesn't leave you feeling fulfilled. In contrast, I'm getting the vibe that this one will make you feel fulfilled. A novel about the end of the world, which makes you glad to be alive. So I'm looking forward to this. One thing I'm not super excited about is that setup. You got one guy and his dog, and you just know that this dog is guaranteed to die at some point in time, and it's going to rip my heart out. I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm probably going to shed actual real world tears, and it's not going to be fun. That setup just does not, like Peter Heller, like, screw you, sir. I can see where you're taking this already. I don't know if anyone else is like this, but when watching a movie or reading a book and the animal dies, like, it's so much more impactful than one of the side characters passes away. When you do that to an animal, I think it's got something to do with the innocence, perhaps. It gets me in the feels every single time. So I'm prepared for this one, and I'm probably still going to cry anyway. Either way, I'm still actually looking forward to this book. Until next time, ciao. G'day, BookTube. You're here with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, and I'm excited to say that I have just finished The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. This is a literary fiction novel, post-apocalyptic themes, where 99% of the world has just died from a chronic virus. This is a really cool book. If you liked being challenged by ideas around suicide, around euthanasia, around total despair, it explores all of those, but through a positive lens and a way that doesn't diminish the overall message, one that is really worth exploring and one that I enjoyed exploring. Anyone who likes McCarthy's writing, you'll love this. It has so many similar literary themes throughout. And again, Peter Heller hates the use of quotation marks. So if you like McCarthy's writing, you'll love this one as well, for how challenging that is to read. But no, apart from the actual physical read in itself, it explores a lot of those same themes. The difference being the hope, the positivity that you can bring to it. It still has those moments of love, of despair, of joy, but then feeling guilty for feeling those different positive feelings as well. It was really well crafted, really well done. It's got the alpha male types in those people that have quite clearly seen time overseas in a military setting, and they bring this tactical mindset to it. But you've also got something in here for the aviation lovers. If you have ever flown a plane or enjoy aviation, our lead protagonist, Hig, is a pilot. And so he gets around in a 1956 Cessna 182. And so these themes are throughout the book as well, which makes it really quite enjoyable. I work in the aviation industry, so I liked those anecdotes. I liked those metaphors filtered throughout. And anyone who has had a dog, our lead protagonist, Hig, has a trusty companion named Jasper. Now, Jasper is the name of my son, so I felt an immediate connection with this dog. I talked about in a previous video the concern that I had as soon as you introduce a canine companion, but I think that was done really well. One that I don't begrudge the author for introducing it all. This is a really good book. I would recommend this. This is at least 4.2 stars out of 5. Thoroughly enjoyable. Explored all those themes that Cormac McCarthy's The Road did, but it did so with hope. Until next time, ciao. G'day, BookTube. You're here with Nick, the Renaissance Bookman, and today we are going to be tier ranking every single book that I read in 2025. Next book we've got is The Dog Stars by Peter Heller, and this is a post-apocalyptic fictional novel. Ultimately, though, this is literary fiction. I've talked a bit about this book on the channel. This was a really cool book that I discovered from a book recommendation when I was at the Newcastle Writers Festival early in 2025. Someone name-dropped this book as one that they were reading and really enjoying, and I was like, if it's good enough for you, Marcus Suzak, good enough for me. I'm going to go and read this book as well. Took me a little bit of time to get to it. I read it on my Christmas holidays, and it was good. Okay, it was good. Anyone who likes Cormac McCarthy's literary writing style, you're going to love Peter Heller. Has a very similar prose. These short, sharp sentences, you're getting that interiority where you've got someone's thoughts. But this person here is just dealing with so much stress, so much doubt as well. And so he's going through a scenario of something, and all of a sudden it snaps back and he's thinking about his late wife. And I saw someone who is experiencing stress, and it was believable and it totally made sense. It creates a very haphazard reading journey, but it makes so much sense when you sit back and look at a page altogether rather than an individual sentence, because a whole bunch of times an individual sentence just stops. And if you ever, it makes sense, right? You've had those thoughts where you're halfway through and then you get distracted thinking about something else. That's exactly the way that Peter Heller writes it. And that's what's going on in Higgs' life. So I've told you a whole bunch about the writing style and the prose, haven't told you what's going on. Imagine a world in which 99% of the world's population has died from a supervirus. And you're now trying to pick up the pieces and survive in what's left. Industry is broken down. Everything's broken down. People are fearful. People are shooting each other on sight because they're afraid that you might have this illness or that you're just going to rob and steal and take their belongings along with them. And so we've got Higgs' dog, Jasper, and his mate, can't even think of his mate, oh my goodness, one of his neighbors essentially, who's a bit of a gun nut, living on an airstrip just north of Denver, Colorado. And Higgs is a pilot and he's getting around in his Cessna 182 and he's able to do scouting trips flying around. So instead of being like the road, Cormac McCarthy's road, pushing around a shopping trolley, he gets to fly around a Cessna 182, which is a much cooler mode of transport, I will say. But it's a really cool exploration of love, of despair, of how to survive when you've lost your purpose. I want to say Peter Heller has obviously read Nietzsche, because for he who has a why can bear almost any how. And that is something that we explore a heck of a lot through Higgs' stories. Everyone should read this. I don't see a lot of people talking about this, probably because it was like 2012 or whatever it was when Peter Heller first published this. If you like a mature theme, because we do touch on some mature themes here, suicide and euthanasia are definitely considered, which makes sense. If you've been essentially alone for 9 years, your mind's going to go to these places at times. But if you like some of those mature themes, but also having just a glass half full approach to it every now and then, this is a book for you. Let's do it. The Dog Stars by Peter Heller. This was thoroughly enjoyable. This was A tier for me, not as good as Red Rising. Just didn't have quite as much testosterone as what Red Rising did, but this is really cool. Enough of my random Aussie accented ramblings. Until next time, ciao.